Let's be honest, without motivation, we can't do anything. Motivation comes after taking action, not before. I actually made a rule for myself that I'm not allowed to touch my phone until I do my morning routine. Welcome to our channel, everyone. It's good to have you with us. Today, I'm going to talk about dopamine and the effects of it on our motivation. Not only in us getting motivated, but also staying motivated. You know, I always like to start off all my videos and all my trainings with a reminder. As always, change and growth can only happen once we take full responsibility. Motivation is no different. If you just cross yourself off as someone who's not motivated, who can't be motivated, nothing that I share with you will make a difference, because if you've already made a decision to give up in this area, you're probably not going to apply anything that I talk about. But if you are someone who wants to improve their motivation, whether that's getting motivated more frequently or staying motivated longer, and you are willing to maybe apply some new things that you learned in this video and make some changes, this is the right video for you. So let's go right into it. First of all, whenever we talk about motivation, people have different points of view. You know, there's some people who, for whatever reason, downplay motivation. They say things like, I don't want to get motivated, or that was just motivational. Let's be honest. Without motivation, we can't do anything. If you don't have motivation, you don't get out of bed. If you don't have motivation, you don't go and eat food. Motivation is a huge part of our lives. So why do so many people have maybe a negative point of view or negative connotation when it comes to motivation? It's because it doesn't last forever. But let's be honest, what does? Nothing in life is permanent. You know, when people say, Nima, I don't like to get motivated because I'll get motivated for a little bit and then I'm not motivated again. You know what that sounds like to me? It sounds like someone who goes, Nima, I don't want to take showers anymore because I took a shower a couple of times, but then I smelled again. Sounds ridiculous, right? Especially when you talk about something like showering. Well, it sounds just as ridiculous to me when somebody talks about that in the context of motivation. Remember something, nothing in life is permanent. If you work hard, go to the gym, have a good diet, and build a nice physique, but you stop the diet, you stop going to the gym, sooner or later, you're going to go back to the old physique that you had, or even worse. If you shower, sooner or later, you're going to smell again and need to shower again. If you become a master at something and become really good at it, but then stop doing it for a very long period of time, you're going to have to go through a little bit of a rusty period before you go back to being as good as you used to be when you were doing it more consistently. So everything in life is temporary. Motivation is no different. In this video, though, I'm going to talk about what are some things that we can do when it comes to our dopamine to enhance our motivation, and also to be more conscious about the things that we can do to actually stay motivated longer. Now, what is dopamine? I've said the word a couple times already. I'm sure a lot of the viewers already know, but many maybe don't. So let me just go over a couple of definitions so you have a better understanding of what I'm referring to when I talk about it. Dopamine is a molecule in the brain and body that is closely linked to our sense of motivation. It can also enhance our depth of focus and lower our threshold for taking action towards specific goals. The simplest way to think about dopamine is that when our dopamine levels are elevated, we tend to focus our attention on outward goals, the things we want, and we feel motivated to pursue them. Dopamine is about wanting, not about having. That's actually a really important point to touch on. Dopamine is not about having something, it's about wanting something. Meaning, the reason dopamine helps in the creation of motivation is because it creates a wanting within us to go after something. Dopamine plays a role in how we feel pleasure. It's a big part of our unique human ability to think and plan. It helps us strive, focus, and find things interesting. Now, here's another key point that I think is really important for all of us to pay attention to. And I think this is a very, very, very important point, especially if you're someone who often doesn't feel like doing things or doesn't feel motivated to do certain things. Dopamine is released after you stick with something long enough for it to reward you. What does that mean? That means that the formula to release dopamine is not for you to feel the dopamine release and then want to take action. It's actually the opposite. You must first take an action, get a reward from it, then the dopamine is released. And as a byproduct of that, you feel more motivated to take action again on that same thing. Let me share with you why this is such an important point. Because it means that motivation comes after taking action, not before. So let's say there's an individual who wants to go to the gym, but they don't feel like it. They don't feel motivated to go. If they push themselves to go to the gym anyways, sooner or later, while they're doing their workout, dopamine will get released and they will feel more motivated to not only continue their workout, but also now that they've developed this memory of, you know what, I didn't feel like going to the gym, but I went anyways. And then once I went, I felt so good after, dopamine. Then the next time they're in a situation where they don't feel like going to the gym again, you know what they're gonna say? They're gonna say, last time I did that, I remember when I went, I felt good after. So maybe if I go again now, I'll feel good after too. That's how you see people who, just like everyone else, don't feel like doing certain things, but they do it anyways all the time. And then there's other people who don't feel like doing things and don't do it at all. Now, which one of those two people is gonna get more results in their life? The person who does things whether they feel like doing it or not, or the person who only does things when they feel like it? Of course, the person who does things whether they feel like it or not. But you know why that person keeps repeating that process? Because they create a memory for themselves of previous instances where they did things even though they didn't feel like it. And they get the dopamine reward because of that. And that memory stays with them. So in the future, when they're in that situation again, they are more likely to take action again instead of going with their feeling and not doing anything. Whereas the other person has built a habit of only doing things when they feel like it. So when they don't feel like it, they don't do anything at all. Let me share with you something really quick. Just this morning, I didn't necessarily feel like doing the things that I had to do. I didn't feel like going to the gym. I didn't feel like getting, my work done. But because I've developed a habit of doing things, whether I feel like it or not, I woke up and I said, look, I don't feel like doing things. What else is new? There's a lot of days I don't feel like doing things. But I'm gonna do it anyways. And I have faith that as I take the right actions, the right feelings, AKA dopamine, will be released. And I'll have a great day, even if I didn't start it so well. So that's exactly what I did. I went to the gym. I went to the sauna. I started to get on my work tasks. And as the day went on, my energy levels went up. I felt better and better and better. And not only am I gonna finish the day having done everything I needed to do, which gets me one step closer to my goals, but I also created a memory lane for myself that, hey, if tomorrow morning I wake up with the same feeling, I'm gonna repeat the same process. And that's one of the huge hallmarks and the differences between highly successful people and people that maybe don't have the results that they want. The people that are highly successful do it whether they feel like it or not. So if there's one thing you take away from this video, take away this. First, you must act and then you'll get the feeling. Not you must feel and then take the action. So anytime you're in a position where you don't feel like doing something, that should be the green light for you to do it anyways. And as you do it, I promise you, the motivation and the right feelings will come. But let me give you one warning before you take this on. If you only do the action so you have the feeling that comes with it, it might not work for you. Let me explain to you what I mean by this. If I go to the gym and I'm expecting that by going to the gym, I'm gonna feel better or feel more motivated, then every few minutes I'm gonna be like, I'm not motivated yet. I'll do a chest press. I'm like, am I motivated yet? And every time I check whether I have become more motivated or whether I feel better, guess what I'm actually doing? I'm tuning my reticular activation system to look for all the negative feelings that I had when I came into the gym. So if you are only gonna do it to feel better, it might not work for you. But if you do it because you're like, I wanna get my things done that I need to get done, and whether I feel better as the day goes on or not, I'm okay with it as long as I get what I need done, most likely it'll work for you. So don't have this external expectation that something's gonna change your internal state, because the reality is, if you're looking for it in that way, you're gonna probably keep going back to the negativity rather than letting the positivity come. Okay, hopefully that made sense to you. Hopefully this helps a lot of you. And hopefully, if nothing else, this video motivates you to take action whether you feel like it or not, okay? Now let's talk about a little bit how we can increase our dopamine and what are some things that people are doing that is killing their ability to produce dopamine and enhance it. So let's talk about, first and foremost, what are some things that we can do to increase our dopamine. Then once I'm done with that, I'm gonna actually share with you a little secret that maybe you don't know or maybe you haven't been reminded of recently, of what is actually killing our dopamine. So let's go first with the things that we can do to increase our dopamine levels naturally. Now, these are not the only things. You may come up with some things, and if you do, please comment below so the rest of us can learn. If you have some information on other ways we can increase our dopamine beyond what I'm about to tell you, I would love it if you comment so we can all learn together. But let's go over the ones that I have prepared here. First things first, exercise regularly. Look, it doesn't have to be going to the gym. It doesn't have to be running a marathon. It doesn't have to be some crazy David Goggins level of exercise. Honestly speaking, if you put on a YouTube video and work out for 10 minutes just by yourself at home and go through the motions and just get your heart rate up, that's even good enough. But the point with this exercise point is you want to make sure you get your heart rate up, you get your body moving, you get some blood flowing, because that's going to do a lot in terms of increasing your dopamine and also generally making you feel better and be healthier. Look, I'd rather have someone work out 5 minutes a day than not work out at all. Would you agree? Especially with the compounding effects of it. So not only is exercise good for you generally, but it actually helps you increase your dopamine levels. Here's another thing, eat protein, okay? Even if you don't eat meat, there's other ways you can get protein, but make sure you're getting protein in your diet. That's a huge part about increasing dopamine. Reduce saturated fat consumption. Pay attention to gut health. Now, the reality is, a lot of people feel a lack of motivation for two major things. One of them is not having the best gut health, having digestive problems, feeling bloated. The other thing that also I think relates to this is not getting enough sleep. Look, if you eat a lot right before you go to bed and the whole night your body's just digesting food, you're not gonna get as quality of sleep. And in the morning when you wake up, you're probably not gonna feel that good. So making sure you have a good diet and also being very strategic with when you eat, how long before bed you eat, can make a big difference, not only in you just feeling better, but also in you getting the right level of sleep with not only just, it's not just time, it's also the quality. Like I said, if your body's digesting food all night while you're trying to get some rest, you're not gonna get the same quality of rest as when your body doesn't have to digest anything while you're sleeping. And I'll tell you something. Some of the times in my life where I felt the most depressed and negative, where I felt the least motivated, was times in my life where I wasn't getting enough sleep. I don't care what other people say. You don't have to wake up at 3 a.m. or at 5 a.m. or at 6 a.m. to become successful. I promise you, the time you wake up in the morning does not actually make a significant difference in how successful you become in your business. If you wake up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. and you're tired the whole day and you have no energy, you have low enthusiasm, you're grumpy and negative, You're not going to be as productive as someone who wakes up at maybe 9 a.m. Now, I'm not saying you should wake up at 9 a.m., but just for the example, but is super energetic, super enthusiastic, super focused throughout the day with their daily activities. If you had to wake up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym and do all of this, then every CEO and successful business owner would have a six-pack and would be jacked and would be... But honestly, look around you. Most CEOs, most successful entrepreneurs are not that fit. But I remember when I first got into the self-help and personal development area, I would see like wake up at 5, wake up. And honestly speaking, it didn't work for me. So I would wake up at like 4:30 a.m. and I would be tired the whole day. So by 2 p.m. I would be exhausted and drained. I remember one time, just a quick story and then we'll continue. I wake up at 4:30 a.m. and it's like I think the 10th day in a row that I'm waking up at that time. And I'm driving on the highway. And I'm so tired that I remember at one point I'm like, there's a lot of traffic, so maybe if I can just take a quick snooze. And this is very stupid. Please don't try this at home. But I literally close my eyes for a second while my leg is on the brake. And obviously when you sleep, your leg doesn't stay on the brake. So then the next thing I know, I hear boom. And I wake up and I hit the car in front of me. And that was the day where I was like, look, I think there's a better strategy to this thing than wake up at 4:30 a.m. And you know what? I'm making right now $1 million a year, about $100,000 a month. And I wake up at 6:30 a.m. Some days I wake up at 7 a.m. Some days, if I really don't get enough sleep the night before, I'll wake up at 7:30 a.m. And I've been fine because I'd rather be energized for the day and feel good than wake up super early and be super, super exhausted and tired all day. Now, again, if it works for someone else to wake up at 3 a.m., good for them. If it works for someone else to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, good for them. But you got to figure out what works for you. Because getting enough rest is the most important thing in my opinion. Getting enough sleep is the most important thing in my opinion. In you maintaining a positive level of state throughout the day so you can actually take the right actions with the right level of enthusiasm and productivity. Here's another one, meditate. I'm not huge in meditation. It's a habit that I'm starting to develop more and more. But meditation is associated with better mental and physical health, which may be due to increasing dopamine production. You can meditate while sitting, standing, or even walking. Let me explain to you really quick what I believe meditation is. Now, someone who's a meditation expert might totally disagree with this, and that's fine. But for me, meditation is being in the present moments. Not being in your thoughts, not being in the future, not being in the past, but being here right now. For some people, that might be when they're walking their dog. For other people, that might be when they're, driving. Let's say, well, I hope you don't meditate when you're driving. But my point is that if you can find yourself in a moment of presence. I remember when I used to play soccer, I would think about nothing but playing soccer. And that was kind of a meditation for me. So meditation is, to me, just being in the moment, being in the present, and being in the here and now. And however you can get into that place, you're going to benefit from it. The last thing on this list, get an appropriate amount of sunlight. Evidence suggests that sun exposure can increase the density of dopamine receptors in certain areas of the brain. However, it's important to follow safety guidelines about sun exposure since it's associated with an increased risk of conditions like skin cancer. So please put on your sunscreen. I'm not a medical expert, but of course, the more sun exposure you get, the more vitamin D produces in your body, the healthier you're going to be and the more dopamine you're going to produce. Now, I promised you I was going to share with you a secret. Now, it might not be such a secret if you've come across this information before, but if you haven't, for you, this is going to be pretty big. If you expose yourself to a lot of cheap dopamine hits, you're going to need higher thresholds that produce dopamine for you to feel motivated. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. All of us have social media apps that give us notifications all the time. When you get a like, there's a dopamine hit. When there is a positive comment, you get a dopamine hit. When you go watch a video on TikTok or you go on your Explorer on your social media, there is a dopamine hit. And let me tell you why it's such a powerful dopamine hit. Things like TikTok, things like Instagram, because it's kind of like with the casino. You don't actually know what you're going to get. So every time you go on there, you're anticipating. Anticipating what? a certain level of emotion. If you watch a positive video, you're gonna feel super happy and motivated maybe. If you watch a sad video, you're gonna be very sad. If you watch a video that makes you angry, you're gonna get angry. So because you never know what you're gonna get, again, what is dopamine? It's not about having, it's about wanting. You keep wanting to go back because you're like, maybe this time I'll get the happy emotion. Maybe this time I'll get the motivated emotion. So that randomness of you, that's why when you open up your TikTok, it always pops up a random video. When you open up Instagram Explorer, there's always all these random different videos. Because it's meant to create the casino effect, which is you don't know what you're gonna get, so it's gonna increase the dopamine that's released every time you go on there. Same thing with Facebook, same thing with all these other apps. So when we are so wired into these social media apps and we go on it all the time throughout the day, we're getting all these cheap dopamine hits. That's why when you read a book, it's so boring. That's why when you're studying for your exams or school or whatever, it's so boring. That's why when you go work out, you don't get maybe as much of a dopamine release. Because just like a drug addict develops a tolerance for the drug that they're taking, so they have to keep taking more and more of a dose to feel the same high, we develop a tolerance for dopamine. So if we keep getting all these cheap dopamine hits, we need a higher and higher and higher release to feel the same level of motivation. So then the book isn't exciting anymore. So what a lot of people are doing nowadays is they're doing a dopamine detox. Getting off their apps or turning off the notifications, not exposing themselves to as many things that create cheap dopamine. And it's not just social media apps, there's a lot of things out there. So that way, they can reset their dopamine tolerance so the book seems exciting again. You know, one thing that I started doing that really helped me with habits like reading and other habits that are very important but not always urgent in our day is I actually made a rule for myself that I'm not allowed to touch my phone until I do my morning routine, which includes reading, meditation, going over my goals, visualization, because I realized that I want to do nothing more than go on my phone as soon as possible because that's where all the money is. That's where all the business is. All my business is generated through my phone. And every time I open my phone, there's a lot of problems in there. And if I solve those problems, I get a lot of good income and return on it. And many of you could probably relate because we're also dependent on technology nowadays. So for me, I'm like, man, I really want to go on my phone more than anything because that's where my business is. That's where all my commitments are. That's where, okay. So I'm like, what if I set a boundary where I don't go on my phone until I do the habits in my day that are extremely important but not that urgent. Reading, journaling, meditation, visualizing your goals, whatever it might be. And guess what? Ever since I started doing that, I've been getting all my morning habit routines done, no problem. Because the only way I can get to my phone is if I do those first. So if you're struggling with some habits, whether that's working out, whether that's journaling, whether that's meditation, try this out for yourself. Make it a rule for yourself that you're not allowed to go on your phone or you're not allowed to go on a certain app or whatever until you get those tasks done. And see how much more motivated you are to do that because now you know if I get this stuff done, then I get to that. Anyways, I don't want to make this video go too long. Here's what I want you to do. If you want to learn more about motivation, things like intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, click right here. There's a video that's going to tell you exactly all about that in full detail. If you want to learn why motivation works, why it's so important, how you can actually enhance it, again, we're going to put another video here. Click it, please, and you can get all that information. And most important, please subscribe, hit the notification button, so every time a video comes up from us, you can be the first one to see it and support this channel as we grow. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.